Hi everybody, welcome. I'm Samantha Johnston. I'm the Executive Director and Curator here at Colorado Photographic Art Center. Feels like deja vu, I was just doing this last night. If it's your first time here, welcome. We are a nonprofit photography center. We've been around for 60 years. We promote exhibitions, education programming. We're really excited to be in this beautiful space that we built out and moved into last July. So if it's your first time here, please feel free to take a look around after the panel. We're so excited to have this exhibition, Lost and Found, up. We just had the reception last night. Many of you were here, so thank you for being back again today. Thank you to Michael and Michael for curating, and we were so excited to partner with Analog Forever on this exhibition. So today's panel, we're going to be talking about analog photography, and I'm going to let each panelists introduce themselves a little bit, and then we're going to get started and we'll have time at the end for questions. So can everyone hear us? Great, okay. Mark?
Oh, you're first. I'm first. Hello, Betty, Mark Sink. They're 60 years old. Well, about 60 years ago, I started doing reverse technology analog photography. I studied under Ruth Thorne Thompson, and it's been a reverse process, alt process my whole life, coming into our turn of the century. I love this discussion of our last century when we all were on film, and what's going on now in the crossover is very, very interesting topic. So thrilled, thank you to be here. It's an honor to be on this show, and I was saying, this is one of the best shows I've seen. It's a little self-serving, but it's a lot of fun. It's an honor to be with this group.
I would agree, it's definitely one of the best shows I've ever seen, but there's reasons for that. I'm Michael Kirchoff. I'm the editor-in-chief at Analog Forever magazine. I'm also a professional photographer, fine art photographer, creating my own work. I guess I'm also a writer, doing countless interviews. Sometimes a podcaster, that's few and far between, but I wear a lot of hats. But analog photography has just been, well, like Mark, it was just photography. When now it's analog. Now we need to differentiate for creative reasons, and it's not to discount digital photography at all, but this is really about why the hands-on approach of using analog film processes and materials is something that is very meaningful to us, and that's why we're here presenting this to you now.
It is a great show. I'm Michael Behlen. I'm the founder of Analog Forever magazine. Been doing some type of film or analog process for 13 years now. So I think unlike some of the other folks in this room or on the panel, I actually reverted to film. So I started with digital. Maybe like a lot of us, but I think what's been odd about founding the magazine and eventually ending up here, after all these years of doing indie publishing, DIY, zines, all that, it seems that we have a community now. And I'd like to say, analog is wonderful, but I think it's the people that use those processes that make everything so wonderful. And I think without meeting those people and that human element, I don't know. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So, but short story, we started the magazine 6 years ago. We've been doing a lot together. I met Kirchoff from a magazine I used to run called Prime a long time ago. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. So, Carol. We have two.
We have two.
There you go.
Right. Hi, everyone. So I'm Golemboski. I live here in Denver. I am an educator and a photographer. So I am the program director of the photography at the University of Colorado, Denver. And I'm also a practicing artist. And I never gave up using film. As part of our program, I am also in charge of making sure that we're offering a huge variety of courses and that we have all of the latest equipment for students to learn on. But I I really love the darkroom. So it's something that I felt that as just a creative outlet, it was really important for me to kind of stay in that space. But yeah, so I'm thrilled to be in this company on the panel and just to talk more about film and analog.
Hello, my name is Michael Ash Smith. I'm pretty sure I was chosen because I lived here in the area. Like Michael here, I started digitally too, and then realized pretty quickly that it really wasn't meant for me in the whole process with it, and just felt hands off. So I started doing film out of pure love for it, and have been doing it ever since. I'm a professional photographer. I've been the one since 2008-ish, and they asked me to be part of the show, which I really appreciate, and I appreciate them coming out here, and I'm excited to talk further.
Great, thanks everybody. Before we kind of dive into more, Michael, could you kind of talk a little bit more about, I know you did a little bit last night, the curation. I had some questions last night because there are digital prints on the wall, and so I think kind of your definition of analog and how that kind of manifested itself in the curation process for this show.
Sure. Yeah, I know we're probably talking about that. So, as far as the curation of the show, it followed the same lines of how we choose work that's in the magazine, and it's pretty basic. As long as your work contains one major component that is analog, that's all we need. That's valid enough, because we live in a digital world, but we're still taking on these analog processes. And I mean, I'd have to look around, but I would say there's probably, I don't know, probably 50% of these works have some sort of digital component to them. Because again, that's the world we live in, and some of the things that we're creating now are actually not possible without some of the digital technology. A kind of case in point is David Sokosh's work around the corner, that large cyanotype. Cyanotypes are made with it's a contact printing process. So the piece of film that you have, if you want to make a print this big, you have to have a piece of film this big. And in the old days, we would use a camera. You'd have to use a 16 by 20 camera to make that print. That's not for everybody. So now with digital cameras, we can take that file, make a digital negative, and then make an analog cyanotype print. And by the same token, you could do it with platinum palladium, albumin printing, any contact printing process. I mean, it's analog. And
Is there any AI in the show?
there's no AI in the show. No, that wouldn't work out.
Didn't sneak in?
In any way, yeah, not on my watch.
Instagram now tells you, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I didn't
Which is good.
know that.
But none of this, just like I said, none of this discounts the digital world. Analog processes obviously took a nosedive when digital took over, but there are a lot of people who, Mark, Carol, like we just never gave it up. Partly because you don't want to give up the things that you love to do, because there's that human approach to it that something like AI just doesn't offer you. I mean, you can be a human and you can engage with a computer and create artwork, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think in order to engage with the work, it has to be done on a more human level. There's more authenticity to the work. A lot of people will just say that's where the soul of the work comes through. So it's a little bit, and now it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to AI.
Well, when photography was developed, painters were saying, oh,
Right.
it was the AI of the day. There is no soul to this. It's mechanical. So careful.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it's progress, it's right. I mean, photography is the progress of painting, and AI is the progress of.
There were a lot of knee-jerk reactions then. You know, that's the end of portrait painting.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh.
People are often scared of change, and all of us in front of you are scared of change. So we're going to hold on to this as long as possible. But it's again, I think it's just there's something about the tactile quality of working with your hands and these materials, whether it's something like Polaroid, just the mechanics of seeing that print come out, or working in the darkroom. You know, we were talking a minute ago about the first time we ever saw an image appear, you know, on a piece of paper, like it's genuine magic.
It is.
And
I call it dancing in the darkroom. when it plate's coming up in my coding and it comes up and this the music playing. That doesn't happen in an inkjet printer.
Those AI images,
that just magic is not there.
Right. And I think it's interesting when we have people like Michael, and Michael's too.
I'm going by Behlen from now on, everybody.
Yeah.
This is now Smith.
Mr. Smith over here. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for you started with digital, and then at a certain point you realize it's just like you're not connecting with it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hear me? I feel like I'm far over here. Yeah, I mean, it's not, there's nothing wrong with digital. I think digital is amazing for learning. Just being able to have a camera and to fire off as many frames as you want without having to spend really any extra money on it was probably a godsend, honestly. Like, I would just fire off shot after shot after shot after shot and just learn and learn and learn and toy with the camera. And then I took all of that I learned for 2 or 3 years with the digital camera, but never really felt anything towards it. And then I said, I might as well try film. And then got, well, you guys are gonna get pissed at this, but bought a full kit RC with like 3 lenses and a case for like $400. Now it's worth like what, $6,000–7,000. But bought it all and went out and shot it. And like they said, there's just magic. There's just magic in the film.
So what's your dancing in the darkroom moment? Mark has seen the emulsion come up.
I'm sorry, the emulsion. I actually don't have any problem with the inkjet printing. I like watching it come through. I'm like, yay! Mine was the getting the negative, processing the film on my own the first time, and then in my kitchen, and then pulling it out of the thing, and it's all sudsy, and then you look at it and you're like, please God, the image there, and then they hit, and then you're like, all right, and then they dry, and then you go, I went to the scanner, and then you pop it up, and that's my moment.
Isn't the expectation of it is not clear, unlike digital? There's that moment of surprise still?
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, digital, you're just, I tend to say this too often, but you're just kind of staring at the back of the screen, and there's really no, you have to trust yourself. I trust myself. So like, if I'm shooting out there, I have my partner's here. She'll attest to this. She's like, did you get it? I have no idea. Like,
that's the beauty.
That's the whole part of it that I like. My objection, what I'm desiring to do is to create a moment, to capture that moment. How I obtain that moment is irrelevant. The film is the thing that makes the moment work for me. And when the film hits, and it doesn't always hit, but when it hits, that's it. That's the glorious moment where it doesn't matter how many digital photos I took of that same thing, none of them will even remotely compare to the one film, whether it's Polaroid, whether it's, pack film, which me love, or Holga, or RC, it doesn't matter. It's just when that hits, that's the moment. And then that's like the kind of cycle. You can get that moment, and my next shoot is to recreate that moment, and then just keep going after. I just keep chasing that moment.
It's addicting, yeah. It's so much better than Instagram.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
Yeah, it's a very addicting thing.
What do you see in your students, Carol? Are you seeing the same type of love,
Yeah, in
passion.
fact, I'm seeing a few of my students in this room right now, which
All
is
right.
really exciting. I mean, I think that there has been a real renewed interest in using analog materials among young people, especially, people who never had handled a roll of film before. I mean, I'm thinking when I grew up, I mean, you're going to have to be a photographer to be handling film. Everybody's putting film in point shoot cameras and doing photo. Everybody knew how to put it in the back of the camera, click it in, shut it. So I find that young people haven't even, I'm like assuming things. They haven't even had that experience. They just have it in their hands. So I find that, I think especially I would say in the last, probably 7 or 8 years, but maybe even more so since the pandemic, there's been a lot of renewed interest among students and young people in learning film, because I think it's sort of like, well, everybody shoots digitally now with their phones like multiple times a day. And so I think it's, I think there's a mystique about using film that, for a while, among students, I felt like they all kind of were making the shift to working digitally. Like 2007, 2008, my advanced students have a choice of how they want to shoot, and they were all choosing digital. And then I started to see it kind of slowly come back around, which is really satisfying for me. But I love to teach it, and I love to introduce it to students. And it's great that those classes are full now with waitlists. So
What would you think the why is, since that's the title of our talk today? What do you think that is?
I think there's something that's really tangible about it. That it's an experience.
There you go.
So it's different. It's not being on a screen, which we are on all the time. I mean, I feel like I'm as addicted to my phone as every other person. But I think that there's it's a real experience when you get in that dark room, and I think that especially with certain students, I see them just kind of fall in love with it and take a class maybe just for fun, but then suddenly they're there all the time in the lab, and so I love that. I love being able to introduce it to young people.
You see it, I taught my niece and nephew in the kitchen, and the first thing, they, were out of their minds, bouncing around. And I was heartwarmed. A year ago, some friends introduced me to a film lab here, not just another film lab. And this crew, the owner is 22, was born in 2002, and there's a design, and in the back is a beautiful shooting studio, and in the back, and they had a print swap, analog print swap, and I thought, let's see how many people, couple hundred people there. Every kid had film cameras and shoot, and they were comparing their Konicas to their Pentaxes to their, and just glory in it. And I have a box full of dead SX70s that I've collected for forever, and I keep like 10 working, but I have just ones. And I thought, what if there was someone that might get excited, to make, and there is a Denver practicing, he's called Instatac, or Frank Attack.
Oh, yeah.
Frank, he wet his band, that's his deal, is redoing, Polaroid Frank Attacks, and he makes digital backs, that's his whole. And so I found this bevy of people that were like, and I don't know, us old people. I have boxes of dead cameras. I've collected them for years. I have a toy camera collection, and I've known with the Diana and stuff. I have 300 Dianas and all of their sisters and brothers.
We're all coming over later, Mark.
Come to the studio.
Let me dive into like one thing you mentioned about hundreds of kids. We don't have shared spaces anymore. There's nowhere for kids to go. Maybe art is the place that they can go and be together. Maybe it's not even the art.
The print swap was incredible.
Yeah.
You do print swaps, but that was a salon that we need to be there in person, personally. You can't do that in Zoom meetings.
And you can't
it
high-five
doesn't happen
somebody
on
on the
Instagram,
internet.
and stuff. My whole life is around getting people together like this,
And you see it kind of skipped a generation a little bit. And now you see younger kids born in the early aughts.
Coming back to it. But I think, like you teach, this day to survive, you've got to wear many hats. You've got to know how to scan your film. You've got to know how, you've got to learn. I got an ask for a Nautilus shell by Cart Driver to do a big size wall piece. In my drawer, I had a Nautilus shell, put it on the scanner, turned it into a cyanotype, boom. In 15 minutes, I had $500. It was incredible. You got
Is that
it.
the answer to why analog?
Yeah.
I love it.
It came. He said, "You do cyanotypes, right?" My daughter did cyanotype flowers for their bathrooms. That they love. That again, I put her flower cyanotypes on Instagram. Man, she's my cash cow.
There you go. And I think just looking back to Sam, your question about who, what, when, where, why, I think what you really heard in a lot of different ways is the people. And I think that's why we're all here. Art doesn't exist in a vacuum. That's why AI art is simply boring. It's boring. There's no story behind it. And
That's okay. That's a different conversation. We're talking about analog today.
yeah. So, and I always for me, because I work with AI in my day job. I work with all types of stuff in my day job, and there's just something about connecting with people over something that you can hold. And that really is the thesis statement to what we're doing. So based on who we selected for the exhibition, it's all wonderful work, and you may go through the exhibition today and say, hey, this is maybe X, I like this, and I'm not sure why this was selected. Maybe that piece you're missing is that connection. So I would just encourage everybody to think a little bit deeper about what you're looking at, and maybe also why they made it, and just spend time pondering that. I think you'll find some answers. So. Sure, go for it. I see a hand. Let's go.
One of the things that struck me about analog, not just in photography, but in vinyl and other things, is just this idea of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Generational nostalgia. I started shooting a film when I was a kid. I never stopped, but I had this period where in my 30s, I got real fascinated with what I had known and done when I was young. And so I wondered if you guys could speak about your thoughts on how nostalgia factors in to, because we heard some of the younger, so it's not nostalgic for these kids, it's nostalgic for us that are old.
And so to recap the question, in case anybody didn't hear, this question is, how does nostalgia play into film photography for young kids getting interested? And how does that relate to us actually experiencing that nostalgia?
Can I take this one?
Go for it, sir.
So, nostalgia is created. It's not just there. So it's not an automatic thing out of nowhere. You have to create the nostalgia, and I think this is where Edwin Land basically changed the world with Polaroid. Is that he created this thing that felt different and nostalgic after a certain period of time. And a lot of people in this room are familiar with Polaroid, I'm sure. It went away, came back. But there's this great story that I have relating to kids and nostalgia. And I was a wedding photographer for a number of years, paid the bills. And I did this wedding, and at these weddings I'd carry around 16 cameras. You know, a Rolly, RC, 2 Polaroids, you know, SX70, all this stuff. But the Polaroid, because of the physical, tangible element to it, was the one that you could see immediately. And in a way, the Polaroid is a digital camera. And there's always kids at weddings. And I used to give the kids a Polaroid to walk around with and like get their perspective. It was kind of like a weird little unique way of seeing what was going on at these weddings without me being able to see what's going on at the wedding. So they take the weirdest photographs you've ever seen in your life. Anyway, so this one particular kid, I took this, I don't remember if it was a girl or a boy, but I took their photograph, and Polaroid comes out, and I put it on the table, and we were right about to eat the dinner. And so they were sitting there, and they looked at me, and they're like, and they said, what am I, like, what is this? Couldn't be more than 7 years old. And I said, oh, this is a Polaroid, your picture's gonna show up on it. And they said, well, when will it be done downloading? That's a pretty damn good question. So they're raised in this digital mindset. A lot of people here were raised in a film mindset. The people that were raised in a film mindset find nostalgia in that thing. The people that are raised in the digital mindset, I guarantee you in 20 years are going to find nostalgia in these weird little digital cameras, and they're already coming around.
Yeah, they are.
It's already coming back. People, my daughter wants a little, like, crappy little point-and-shoot digital camera, so it's already coming back.
I've already seen 3 Casio watches tonight from the 80s.
Right, so we create the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And that kid, I gave him that Polaroid, because that's what I did, would not let it go for the whole night. And I guarantee you that kid probably still likes Polaroids to this day, and this is the beauty of the film and why we do what we do, why we shoot it, because I think the nostalgia is something that has to be created, and that's where in my opinion, why film feels so good.
There's a parallel in the music industry going back to vinyl.
Right.
And analog, yes, it's swinging back, and now there are people, you know, completely analog, and they are putting out vinyl records before they pick something. Hey, you didn't need to know that. My bleeding arm.
Oh, we get that.
But, yeah, that parallel on coming back, which we look at nostalgia record, you know. But, you know, my daughter has never had a roll-down window. She said, what's a roll-down window? And I'm like, oh my God, you know. But she loves my record player. She's all about records.
I think one of the other things that, from an informational and educational standpoint, that informed a lot of the younger generation were the iPhone or smartphone apps. You know, the apps themselves look like little analog cameras, and then all of the filters that are on there, they're based on analog processes. And I think it took a little while, but I mean, there have been more than a few times somebody will show me a photograph that they made or changed, a digital photograph, changed with an app and made it to look like Collodion, for instance, and they say, isn't this really cool? And you say, yeah, that's really great. An original would be even better. And they say, what do you mean?
Why?
And you're like, all of these things that you're using every single day to change your regular color digital photographs into something far more interesting, they're all based upon photographic processes that you don't really know about yet, but I think that you should investigate it. If you think that's cool, wait till you see the real thing, because now you're really going to get sucked in, and that's what brings a lot of the newer generation in.
That came in when I want to bring up, you know, Photoshop came around, and I saw the first Photoshop one by Scully was presented at the concert. We're all sitting oh, God, please, no. And it was the man on the moon, and he zoomed in, he said, we're developing a new tool called Sharpen, and the stars on the flag were solid, and they went sharp. And we went, and that was the moment of the end, and to me, and now my favorite line is, be true to the medium. If you're shooting color digital, just be color sharp digital. Don't try and be E6. Put your E6 film filter over it. Don't try and be Tri-X with digital. Just be true to the medium. If you're doing it, don't try and fake other mediums. I'll walk up, when you're in a show and you walk up, God, that's a beautiful platinum print. See, it was faked. Sorry, and that they had for a long time the apps. I had my phone full. I could make a Diana, I could make a wet plate, and I always kept it in case the wet plates were wiping out because it's very touchy. That I'll do the app to save the shoot, just in case. And no one uses those anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely gone that way.
That really kind of dropped off. The fake film numbers and film numbering and things
Well, I think
fakey dropped away, which I'm happy about.
They moved on.
I think over time, all inauthentic people get bored.
Yeah.
Over a certain period of time,
They're
you can't
stiff.
keep doing it for other people. If you're not doing it for yourself, you eventually look in the mirror long enough to move on. In my opinion.
I'm gonna toss out a contrasting opinion here.
Go for it.
I mean, the reason I'm sitting here today is because I saw something digitally created into film, and I said, "Oh, damn, it looks better in film. Then I'm gonna go do the film."
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't have any problem with AI. I don't have any. It should be used for medical business, not photography. But I don't have any problem with the presets or anything like that. Without them, I don't think we'd be where we are now with film.
That's true.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think everybody started using them, and they're like, "Oh shit, Portrait 400 looks freaking cool."
Oh, I love
And so
pushing
they
it.
went and
Can
then
you
buy
buy that?
Portrait
Yeah,
400
that's
film. And I don't think
Good
we
point.
see the resurgence in Kodak, the resurgence in Polaroid, or the resurgence in any of these things without digital we needed digital to bring film back.
I
We
think-
needed the Kodak to collapse and the Polar, because then people were like, I really like this stuff. And then it went flying back on the shelves because everybody came back around. So I don't really knock the I'm not, no one's knocking it, but I'm saying it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people, including my daughter, get into more film related stuff because they were testing theories with digital.
That's cool.
And they went out and they decided, you know what, I'm all in on film because of digital.
And I think with Carol, Mark, and Michael too, like, instead of like, I know what you said earlier, like, it's not so much that we're saying it is inauthentic, but unless you progress in that and have people like us, instead of saying pushing down, quit, pull up, do it this way. That's really, I think, that educational approach we're trying to take. We're not saying it's terrible, wrong, bad,
Right.
but the other road's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You know?
I know. But the digital is the gateway drug.
It is.
So,
Yeah, and then you can't afford film cameras because you buy all too much
can't
L
afford that.
glass.
Right, exactly.
You know?
So now we just need to get film prices down.
We're working on it. But, yeah. We got another question? We got one up there?
Yeah.
Please, can you speak very loudly?
I will try to.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you could address the issue of impermanence of materials.
Oh, my favorite.
For example, the slides that I took in Europe 50 years ago when I was hitchhiking, I can't even look at anymore because they faded, they're gone. But the digital photos that I was taking when I first got into it maybe 20 years ago are still as good as they are now.
Which photo, can I ask you,
The
what,
Ektachrome.
Ektachrome faded.
can I, before we answer, which ones do you feel more emotionally connected to?
The ones that I can see.
It wasn't a gotcha, I was
The ones
curious.
that I can't see, I don't have any emotional attachment to it. I have an emotional missing.
Yeah.
That might be a series right there. When you first said that, I started to visualize your images fading away. Like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But Kodachrome from the 40s, I have my grandfather's Kodachromes. They're as tack sharp and juicy. It was a super stable process.
There were certainly some.
Kodachrome was just, oh God, bring back Kodachrome.
Right. But Ektachrome didn't hold those same.
Kodachrome, peel, Polaroid peel, it goes away. Polaroid SX70 is a dye transfer project. It's pretty stable. But the peel away is going away. Like C41.
But at the same time, I think some people embrace the fact that some of the materials are impermanent, and there's something. Some people find that to be special in and of itself, and I know, for example, Carol has a series of work on anthotypes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can also find, I mean, I hear what you're saying, that like if you can't see those images anymore, then you're like, well, what do I even do with these? I think there's also just can be sort of a poignancy though to like looking at I mean, I feel like that kind of comes back to this idea of nostalgia, you know, like you're saying, oh, Kodachrome, please make me. I mean, we're all, those of us that are old now, we're all nostalgic about Kodachrome. And, you know, materials that got discontinued over the years that were some of our favorite materials. You know, because it makes you kind of like think back to a time. I mean, I have throughout most of my career been photographing old objects. So to me, there's always this sort of presence of these objects that had been, you know, felt like these stories that they couldn't tell, and they sort of represented something that was meaningful or useful to somebody who, and maybe that person is gone, but that object is still there. So even when I was young, I was photographing those objects, and now I feel that way a little bit about my own photographs, which is crazy. You know, like I look back on the photographs that I created. Fortunately, they are still, you know, I'm primarily a black and white photographer in my materials. Like everything is stable, you know. But, you know, I'm also doing this series where I'm collecting photographic papers that expired in the 20th century, so like 1930s, mostly through like the 1970s and 80s, and kind of testing out those papers. And I think part of why I want to use those materials, even though they don't behave like they are supposed to, you know, they'll turn completely black in the developer sometimes, even if it's an unopened box. But I feel this maybe a connection with the photographers that, you know, had that paper. You know, I'm getting it at, you know, estate sales. And
We'll have to share. I'm collecting old paper too. Old Patriga.
Yeah, I love it.
And you're fading in time. I'm interested. I've been burying my slides to watch them decay in the garden to see how it comes up, and beautiful things happen in the decay. I wish I knew the names quickly of the artists that have had water damage to their work, and then like, oh, and then look, oh, that's pretty cool, you know. And, yeah. So there are ways. I'm in a time of my life looking back in nostalgia, history, memory, how decay, body decay, film decay. I'm kind of in that time period personally, but very interested in your fading pieces.
I'd also like to quickly add that, like, you're not really comparing apples to apples here. You're comparing something that was 40-something, 50-something years ago to something that's been relatively short-term. Digital files are only 10 years old. we should have this conversation in 50 years and see if that JPEG works. Because more than likely it won't. And if AI does persist the way it is, we're gonna have different raw files, we're gonna have different JPEG files, we're gonna have different digital files, and ARW, NEF, and DNG files might not exist in 4 years.
Or less.
And so it's been proven that film from a historical standpoint stands the test of time more than digital.
The only thing I'll add to that from my kind of mystical perspective, more so than technical, this is just my opinion. I think with photography, I'm not so sure we should be trying to build monuments that stand the test of time, but I think that all the interactions that we have here today will make a better impact than our photographs lasting for 500 years. I think it's more important to do now,
Yeah.
personally. So.
Well, the Library of Congress and our Denver history, and people started a scanning program thinking, ooh, no need to put this on the shelf anymore. We can digitize it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, I know anybody that's tried a FireWire from 5 years ago, and then you got to put it to the new USB too. I have like 3 step-ups to get there. Pretty soon it won't read the hard drive. And if we get an EMT sun, boop,
Curator event.
there's going to be a black hole. We're all going to be, where's my film? You know,
I
because
wasn't gonna
there
become a
won't be
different
any
thing.
digital. There'll be a big black hole of the digital era until we start over again.
Yeah,
That's where
I'm
you
back
do
to
this
collecting like
Blu-ray.
Blu-rays because of streaming.
Right? Yeah.
So,
We had a hand raise?
Yeah.
So, as we all know, because I know black people on the panel, and I'm a huge proponent of analog photography. But what I want to bring up is we talk about nostalgia, and it sounds like we're talking about nostalgia of the objects, of the tools, of the products that come out of analog photography. And for me, if I took a digital photograph and a film photograph with the same exact thing, the nostalgia lies for me in the image eventually. It doesn't matter where it came from.
Good point.
But there's a celebration of analog because it's other. It's slower. But I just wanted to bring up the point about the nostalgia, the aspect of it. But I guess my question is, and I think we've talked about it a lot, is, where is the specialness in those identical images if you laid them on the table? One analog, one digital.
Very good
Hard.
question.
Yeah.
That's what I have my whole answer.
Go ahead.
I know that was my whole
That's
answer.
all right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, and that's enough. Like, I think that's why we're all here, and I love what Michael Behlen said about it. It's like, we are the ones that are making these. We make it special. Because the image is going to be, I don't care if you take an image on a cell phone or a $5,000 DSLR, mirrorless, or, oh yeah, exactly. Like, the image is what's important, and that's what we're here to celebrate in this building and into different, places.
That was my teacher, Ruth Arn Thompson, that changed my life. I thought if I got a Hasselblad, I'll be able to make good pictures. And she came and showed me her cardboard box with her paper negative that holds her trays and holds her chemistry in the box and shown in museums all over the world, and said, it's about the idea, not the camera. And if it's your content of you, what you're saying, and the camera doesn't matter. And you can take that to different degrees, to what kind of camera will produce what kind of effect. But the basis of that, it's all concept. That's the drive. And when digital came along in film and movies, the filmmaker, everyone was like, oh God, now the big boys used to be able to afford a Hasselblads, and the good movie makers had $100,000 lenses, and all of a sudden the red camera came out, and all of a sudden Academy Award-winning movies were made with iPhones, and everyone was going, oh no, But what rose to the top, the cream that rose to the top, was the story, the concept. And that is reverse technology dream come true to me, that you have a good vision, a good idea, put together a really wonderful series. The camera, and now you can tell AI to do it.
Right. I think the only thing that I would add to that is that maybe from like a wider historical perspective, I think we used to view cameras and lenses as like artisans making tools for craft, not necessarily for everyone to go out and have an autofocus, whatever is out now, right? So I think even the way we look at tools, I think for me, that's nostalgic. Because like I wear a mechanical watch that I wind every day. I wear jeans that are dyed traditionally from Japan.
I took notes and paper.
Yeah, so there's something about the human making the things that we use to make our things, and that domino effect of just having a community, right? Like I don't feel like when I see another person with a certain brand of camera, I don't feel that connection. But if I see anybody with any film camera, we're already good friends.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so I think that part is important to me, just
It's a
from.
little biased.
Yes.
I'm a big jerk. I really mean to people with digital cameras. Yeah. Carol, no, please.
I was just going to say, I feel like I have, maybe because I work with students, I see people working with all sorts of different processes. I have, students who prefer to work digitally, students who prefer to do historic processes, some who want to use film, some, feel like they're all over the place. And I feel like, to me, it's great. Like I'm, and despite the fact that I really love the darkroom, and I feel like it's this creative laboratory where I can really kind of get in the zone. Sometimes I'll have students working on a project in my advanced class, and they're shooting with film, and I'm like, why are you shooting this with film? This doesn't make sense. Like, you will be able to generate a lot more images and learn a lot more and capture what you want to capture if you just do this project digitally. So, I feel like I have a lot of respect for my colleagues and students and everybody who wants to work in whatever way they see fit. And I feel like I've seen a lot of amazing work in all sorts of different processes. I think for me, it's just like a personal decision, and I definitely can connect with other people who share that same sentiment. But to me, there's the finished product, which I love, and I love the sort of depth I can get with a beautiful, black and white silver gelatin print. But
Selenium tone with a little gold bath to it.
But I also just love the process. For me, it's an experience that is actually, like, ironically, it's not a community experience. I go in there, and it's part of the. I'm sort of an introvert at heart, and I kind of love being in that space where I'm just like kind of in my own little world. I got the trays, my music is going, the red lights, the water's running. It's like this environment that is so kind of magic.
And the great print comes up and you're dancing.
Yeah, I feel like
turn
it's
up
a
the
great
music.
moment, but so to me it's like I love looking at, like, this show is amazing. I love looking at all of the analog work, and I love talking about it, and I love introducing students to it. But I also feel like personally, it's a choice because I love working with those materials. I love the experience of it, I guess I'll put it that way.
Not so much a question, but just an adjacent story. I just had a show where 95% of the work was shot on film. And people would see the show, and one person, a fellow artist, asked me the question, why would you shoot it all on film when you could do it digitally? And that question is what we're talking. And I just was, I felt like I really had to take the time, and I took a long time explaining it to her. But part of me also was like, wow, are people thinking that? You know what I mean? They're just like, is this all digital? When it's, so I had to explain, it's like, I wanted this work to look like it was taken in a different time. And my cameras that I used for that show were a 1931 Voigtlander and a 1958 Rolleiflex. And that's the most authentic way to do it, is to shoot it with cameras, because you don't have to then go in and make it look old, because it's, you know, it's already there. So it's just a short story, and it kind of, you know, reflects why.
We get why a lot, and this is a very small story, but my son likes to ask me why I have so many tattoos. And sometimes people will tell you a story like, there's all this meaning, and I was like, they're just super cool and they make me look tough. And sometimes that's enough, right? Sometimes that why, like, I don't know, like sometimes people put you on the spot and they want you to like articulate this like super deep spiritual answer, and like sometimes like it makes me happy. Is that not enough? Like, and, yeah. So I just think it's kind of funny because, you know, we have to ask all you all that question all the time, and we expect you all to have a good answer. But
and I also lied to you. In 1982, I bought a Hasselblad.
And the pictures got so
Did it
much
work?
better.
Do you still have
It didn't work. It got me into my commercial side. But I use that camera today. It doesn't take batteries. I used it yesterday. When someone comes for a portrait, I can hang a digital back onto it if I want to. I shoot tri-X through it. And that camera, you know, name a camera, a 500 cm, but name a camera that you can buy. I don't even want to know how many years ago 82 was, but that's the short life. When I spent $8,000 on a Nikon D2, I finally got a D2. You know, it's value. It's worthless.
Yeah. It's a doorstep.
I couldn't sell it if I wanted it, too. And that's one of my grumpy old man things, is the beautiful tools are forgotten. We have been lollygagged into the mafia of creative suite with Photoshop. And if you don't pay to play, you're done for. And there's a beautiful freedom in analog. You don't have to pay to play. My collodion wet plates don't use one corporate, chemical. It's all basic. Nothing has a photo stamp out of it, except I support Bostic and Sullivan. But it's that idea, you can make something on paper. You can have these pieces of the prints on silver print paper, the anthrotypes or the leaves. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we can check back how much your new digital camera's worth next year.
my S670 keeps on going up in price.
Maybe I shouldn't have given those away.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah, same thing. When I started into collodion wet plates 20 years ago now, the market was just flooded with incredible cheap. No one wanted large format cameras. You could just get them for, incredible price. It's like what happened when TV stations went from analog film with Bolex cameras with 3 things. The cameras hit the market for $50 a piece of 16 millimeter film cameras. And the same thing happened at the turn of the century, our turn of the century, when digital arrived. Every gearhead all needed to unload their analog to buy that new Nikon D3.
It was kind of like that bell curve, right? Like Hasselblad is fine. I need D2.
Yeah.
Hasselblad is fine.
Now we're back, and now those view cameras. Now it was one of the better investments I've ever had to record view cameras.
Sir?
You speak of using film and nostalgia for the past and being true to the medium. We're currently experiencing a convergence of lighting sources. There used to be mercury vapor, the greenish street lights, the sodium vapor, the orangish street lights, actual tungsten balance light bulbs, neon, etc. Well, it's now converging into either tungsten balance or daylight balance LEDs. And what are your thoughts on those film and digital rendering that?
Black and white.
Or the Cinestill tungsten.
Well, when I watched John Hickenlooper run for mayor before he ran for governor, he hired a young group of shooters and bypassed a very high-end film company to do his TV commercials. And he hired these young kids that were using Fisher Price and 8mm, and they would let the grocery store light turn green, and then I thought, oh, God, you know, please. And that's turned out to be like the coolest shooting mixture going. And look, and then that ad got him, became our governor. It was 18-year-old kids that he hired. Monkey and his group, but that was going, when I saw those color shifts and everything was, you know, not balanced right. But yes, there is, you used to have just a couple tungsten, you know, I'd have my tungsten filter or your fluorescent filter to balance, or daylight. Well, now it's gone all wacky to try and balance things out.
I think there was just a number of years where I think photography and photographers strive for perfection and everything, and I think if anything that the youth that's taught us, millennials, Gen Z, is that it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. And there are a lot of people who shoot films like Cinestill that render colors differently because they render colors differently. And that's just how this goes back to whatever makes you happy. So if you like to go photograph gas stations at night.
I was just gonna say gas stations at night.
And you want to use Cinestill film and that makes you happy, then go do it. But the idea of perfection is silly. For me, just my humble opinion, in any of the photography world, because the one thing that I like to stress is that I don't think as film photographers we're any different than digital photographers. I think we're just choosing a medium or outlet to express what's inside. And all the digital photographers I know a ton of amazing digital photographers and I love them. And they are wonderful people and they shoot this way and they love it and I love it. And for me, it doesn't express exactly what I want. That question is a good example of it. If you're saying, worried about all the balances and tungsten and everything like that, if someone came to me and said that, I'd be like, oh, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I just shoot what I want to shoot and I render it how I want that to render. So it's just this kind of, I don't think we're any different for that perspective. If somebody there are people who want that perfect color, perfect shot, perfect balance, perfect light thing. That's
sounds
great.
exhausting.
It's great. I think there's a world for that. I walk in there with a $29 toy camera and a Hoga, and I'm like, here it is, and then it's janky and all weird. But that's just what I like. So I don't think that we're ever going to get a pure answer to that question because I think it just depends on the person, what they want to achieve from it. And if you're looking for the great balance and the great accuracy, then I think that it's just, that's up to you.
Does anyone have a color balance app? the color temperature app. It's
Yeah.
on your phone.
Yeah.
Let's see what the color temperature is.
Yeah, I mean, digital's got that.
Yeah.
I do. I used to be a stringer with the New York Times, and when like the Pope was in town, and I'm standing with all the big shooters with their giant lenses, and I'm standing there. I got to whine the Diana. That was my moment of glory. And who are you with?
That's awesome.
Let's see what the color temperature is.
Thank you for your question.
Any other questions for our panelists?
For why analog, for us individually, experience and career, anything, folks, please don't be shy.
I have another question.
Fire away.
So there's also this resurgence in the last several years of using film with a moving image. Is there any interest in moving image coverage in analog forever?
Yeah, you want to tell me how I can do it? I'd say yes.
That's good.
There's actually a gentleman in my hometown. He's on Instagram, and I met him through Instagram because that's how the world works now.
Yes.
And he uses those. There's like a 16-frame camera, and it like makes those moving images.
Uh-huh.
I would love to find a way to do it in a physical space,
Yes.
but I know like even. Sorry, I didn't even talk to you about this, but like I keep seeing like people shooting 16mm films, and I'm interested in how, what, when, where, why. Not so sure, but you can just see me smiling. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I've been super into it lately, and I just feel like, it's way more expensive.
Oh yeah.
So it's really commitment to spend $100 on 3 minutes of 8mm. But I think that the joy is still there. That 3 minutes is
Yeah.
like everything. You
I've
know?
spent more money at the bar. It's all right. I think we can swing it. So,
I mean, actually,
Yeah.
to that question, we actually already have done that. And, well, we didn't make it, but we featured somebody who created a movie out of thousands of
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did the Adidas ad. I think it was for Adidas. He did it.
Yes.
And
Ed
he's become
Carr.
very successful doing it, and it didn't end there. And he's continuing to do that, and he's built
Yeah.
basically a production company around
Ed
that
Carr.
idea.
Ed Carr, yeah, he's part of the Sustainable Darkroom out of the UK.
Yeah.
And they're super cool. Just a quick tangent, because I think they deserve it. They do everything like sustainable, organic, like, I'm not that cool to know exactly how they do it, but I do respect what they're doing. I think it's definitely something you should Google and check out.
You can
There's a
develop
local
and
artist.
print film with coffee
Yeah.
grinds, which is great. My daughter does stop motion.
Yes.
She is big on stop motion.
There's a local artist here, Leah Dinmet, who also does animations with Samantha.
Cool.
So, yeah, there's like, especially in our local community, there's quite a few who are working in moving image that I think is becoming more connected to the still photography world in a really beautiful way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it moves like the whole
Crossover.
talk. It's just
Mark
a
used
full,
the word crossover, and I wrote
Yeah.
it down like 3 times because that's such a strong and powerful word in many different ways. But I feel like in the photographic community, there's all these beautiful crossovers. I mean, you can't, in many cases, if you're shooting on color film, unless you can print on a color printer, there's some kind of crossover to printing digitally or scanning your negative. So I just think that it takes all of us who celebrate these different things to come together. I think that's what's beautiful about it.
absolutely.
In current color printers that are pigment-based printers are incredibly archival. I have a window that takes direct sun for 8 years with a huge printout I've done, and it's not fading.
Yeah.
Direct sun. It's like incredible. If you would put a C print, and I hate to say, even silver print might not make that last. But it's unbelievable how the archival of pigment print for output.
Any other questions? I want to leave time for people to mingle and
Yeah.
ask more
So I want to thank you all for being here for
We
this.
have our guy in the wig back here. You're wiggling like you're about to say,
Kevin?
yeah.
No, I have a lot of thoughts, but.
Kevin is a great Polaroid shooter, multi-educator, teacher, has a beautiful show up now, up in CU Boulder.
Yeah, it's up in North Boulder. Yeah, the Boulder Arts District.
And you're all about the crossover and
I use whatever works for the project. I love analog, and I switched to Polaroid because I want to use my hands again. I keep coming back to the bodies, we are doing bodies. And digitals, I kind of love it all though. So whatever works to get it done.
I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. We work with what speaks to us. And when we feel that, that's what we embrace. And whether it creates mistakes and we learn from those mistakes and then move on to make something even better. I think that's what you'll see in all of these works. Like there are a lot of these images that are kind of mistake-based, and sometimes you embrace those mistakes. You embrace that human element that we all have. We're all flawed, so a lot of these pictures are as well. And that's okay. We had a lot of fun getting there. It's all enjoyable.
I believe in chance. The most magical things in life come from chance. And if you can let that chance happen, like magic happens. And yes, you can see it all over the show. I'm inspired by this piece of drawing of her adding, hand adding in the chemistry on the top of it. All around, I've been inspired taking my notes like, that's cool, I want to try that.
There are processes represented here that we can't even pronounce the name of.
And it's true. To me, like I said, and I see a table of tools, and whatever tools to get you to your means of what your concept is, it doesn't really matter to lay it out. I get a little bit, here we go, I'll say the thing. I don't think you need to show the paintbrushes on the side of a platinum thing. If that's saying, ooh, it's platinum. Okay, I know it's platinum.
How are they supposed to feel cool, Mark?
I struggle, I'm sorry if you guys do it, when you say it's Tri-X film shot with Konica camera, that was kind of camera club days, with the gearheads that wanted to tell their camera. To me, that shouldn't matter. It could be in your index when you made it, but it doesn't need to be written on your, right there with your image.
I think
it's about the image, not the process.
Yes. When I first started, those captions was all the research I needed to do. So like when I was like a newbie and I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like, how do we even figure out? And then like a couple nice people would be like, oh, this is what it was. And that gave me something as a jumping off point. So maybe in this environment, I agree. I think when we're trying to share the love and knowledge of that, I think that helps people jump into that window,
It's just different levels.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, when it's titled or tagged, that's great. You want to know. But when it's put into the print, like I call it, bigger the signature, worse the art. And, if you're ever submitting something to me, don't sign your print on the print image. That's one of my big pet peeves.
I'm going to go to your house and sign all your stuff.
You can sign it below the image. I prefer on the back of the image. But the signature, the surface of what you're producing is sacred. And you want your eye to go over the surface. It's not about you and your signature. It's about the image you're producing. And so when my eye, see the signature on there, It's one of my pet peeves, sorry. So if you have portfolio reviews, you better take those out of your box.
One of the greatest photographers of our time, Stieglitz and Dan Brickman, signed their prints on the print.
Yeah,
They literally made photography happen.
That's why we have love for
Two
you.
of those prints at home, and they are signed on the print. And I love them.
on the image?
On the image, bottom left-hand corner, hand Brickman, 1909.
Read the box
Oh, I
loves out.
love Van Bregman.
Yeah. So I think that my point of that is, Mark's right, and I'm right, and you're all right. You know,
That's good.
sign it however you want to sign it. That's
Van Bregman's one of my heroes. So
One of my heroes.
And my great-grandfather's worked with Stieglitz and stuff. They all stamped in the Carbon
That's true. He
Studio.
did stamp, right, yeah.
Right, and did put it in there. And I just came across a Gertrude Casimir portrait that was found in an album, and there it is, stamped on the image. So, I still don't like it.
And that's the great thing about art and photography is we all have our opinions. And so